Sometimes I worry that I'm losing my way. Coming back to work after Christmas always seems a struggle. Is it just me? Possibly due to overindulging, drunk slightly too much claret, smoked too many cigars, undoubtedly eaten too many slices of ham, and certainly watched too much TV. But I just don't feel ready for action. I feel a kindred spirit with the ancient Britons, who used to start revelling in midwinter at the end of December, and then hibernated until the sun started to come back at the beginning of February, ready to plough their own fields. What a great idea. No doubt, like me, you have New Year's resolutions. I aim to reintroduce myself to the bicycle that sneers at me in the garage. But what effects a real change? New Year's resolutions, I seem to recall, are soon dropped. As a schoolboy, I remember getting a new exercise book, looking at the clean pages, sniffing that chemical smell of fresh paper, and making a solemn vow to be neat and tidy this time. And for the first few pages, it would be so, but then I would lose heart and revert to my old untidy ways. I lose my way again. How can I find the right path? Is it simply to determine to work harder, do better, gee yourself up into a lather of fervent passion, and then step out into the new year? I don't think so. No, something far more profound is required here. If you, like me, sometimes lose your way, then maybe the story of the wise men has something to teach us. After all, they too were travelling, searching, following a star, and they too lose their way, ending up in Herod's court. Finally, having found what they're looking for, they go home another way, a better way. The wise men, the Magi, have always had enormous appeal. Everything about them has been elaborated in poetry and story. Mysterious, odd figures from the East. As Gentiles, they act as our representatives. All of us Gentiles, we're not actually there, but maybe we can travel with them. Tradition has it there is a fixed number, and that number is 3. Some will even give their names: Caspar, Melchior, Balthazar. But why only 3? Because there are only 3 gifts? But that doesn't follow. Just because I only got socks, bottles of wine and fishing tackle at Christmas doesn't mean that only 3 people gave me presents. It just means that a large number of people gave me these 3 things. In fact, Matthew doesn't give a number. We do not know how many. 2, 3, 12. They are without number. And they're also without name. It was the Venerable Bede who invented the names in the 12th century. So if they are without name and without number, then you and I can be amongst them. If we journey with the wise men, does that make us wise? Well, maybe. If travelling means that we experience constant change in our lives and that we are continually maturing, refusal to do this kind of inner travelling and searching can result in a shallow and limited spiritual life. We know this. The wise men are sincere and persistent in their search for the baby born King of the Jews, and they are obviously guided by God, following a star, a prophecy by Micah, and then in a dream. So God is with us as we search, so we must be encouraged. The wise men, however, also lose their way. They follow the bright star, but using their intelligence to calculate its path and then making wrong assumptions, they end up in the court of Herod, and with such fatal consequences for the children of Bethlehem. The old King Herod stands for everything that is the enemy of this journey. He wishes that the journey had never taken place, and is determined to use it for his own purposes. Look purposely for the child, and when you've found him, come and tell me, so I too can worship him. It's rather like a pantomime. You want to shout out, "No, don't believe him. He's wicked." And I sometimes wonder if there are angels doing exactly that for us when we step into the court of King Herod. In our own spiritual journey, there are danger points. Herod turns up in many guises, and many things conspire to halt or sidetrack us on that journey towards Jesus. And most of them are deceptively ordinary things. Busyness that makes us lose perspective. Weariness that loses sight of hope. Anxiety that constrains and chokes all imagination and generosity. And cynicism that tarnishes innocence and beauty. Such things will dull our vision, make us lose our way, and deflect us from the path. Matthew chapter 2 verse 9 says, "When they'd heard the king, they set out." I like the sound of "they set out." There is the hint that they knew they'd been sidetracked. And we too need to realize when we have been distracted from our journey, when we've left the path for attractive shortcuts that lead us up cul-de-sacs. Then we need to stop, recoup, turn around and once again set out, realizing that although we may have chosen the wrong direction, our star did not, and we need to look again for it. The stargazers from the east saw God in Jesus, and entering the house they saw the child with Mary his mother. They knelt down, offered him their gifts, and worshipped him. They found God in a little baby thing, awesome, almighty, in a baby that is exposed to hurt and dependent. Here is God, in a baby born amongst the animals, cradled in a feeding trough, who became a refugee, fleeing with his family from a raping and pillaging army. Here is God, in a man who's known as the friend of outcasts, identifying with those plagued with infectious diseases. In the man who died a criminal, rejected by his own people, hated by his own enemies, deserted by his own friends and crucified. Here is God, in the vulnerable infant and the man nailed to the cross. Like the wise men, when we find Christ in our lives, our instinct is to bow down and offer the best that is in us, all the gifts we have. And when we found God, then we go back to wherever we came from, but we go back different from the way we came. Like the wise men, we go back another way. Do not go back to Herod. The world does not belong to him. It belongs to Jesus.